There is a quiet kind of power in this world, a power that does not announce itself, a power that does not seek validation, applause, or attention. It simply exists, steady, grounded, unshakable. That power is privacy. In a world that encourages you to share everything, explain everything, and expose every part of your life, choosing privacy is a radical act of self-respect. We live in an age where visibility is mistaken for value and noise is confused with importance. But the truth is this: the most powerful people are not the loudest. They are the most intentional. Not everyone needs to know what you are building. Not everyone deserves to know what you are healing. Not everyone is meant to understand your journey. Privacy is not hiding. Privacy is choosing peace over performance. When you give everyone access to your thoughts, your dreams, your struggles, and your plans, you also give them the power to influence, distract, doubt, and drain you. Opinions enter, comparison creeps in, energy leaks out, and slowly you lose connection with your own inner voice. But when you protect your inner world, something remarkable happens. You begin to hear yourself more clearly. Your decisions become stronger. Your confidence becomes quieter and deeper. Silence sharpens focus. Distance creates clarity. You don't owe the world an explanation for your growth. You don't need permission to change. You don't have to announce your next move to make it real. Some things grow best in the dark. Just like seeds beneath the soil, privacy gives you room to become. There is dignity in not oversharing your pain. There is wisdom in not advertising your plans before they are ready. There is strength in letting your results speak louder than your words. When people know less about you, they assume less. And when they assume less, they interfere less. This is how privacy becomes your superpower. It protects your peace. It preserves your momentum. It keeps your vision sacred. Boundaries are not walls. They are doors with locks. And you decide who gets the key. You can be kind, open, and loving without being accessible to everyone. You can be warm without being exposed. You can be present without being transparent. The strongest people are not guarded because they are afraid. They are selective because they are aware. So choose privacy. Choose depth over display. Choose progress over performance. Move quietly, grow intentionally, protect what matters, because when your life is no longer a public discussion, it becomes a private masterpiece. And that is real power. In a world that constantly demands visibility, oversharing has become normalized. People feel pressured to explain their moves, announce their plans, display their emotions, and justify their choices. But true strength does not come from being seen by everyone. True power is built in privacy. When you stop broadcasting your life and start protecting it, you reclaim control over your energy, your focus, and your destiny. Privacy is not secrecy driven by fear. It is intention driven by wisdom. It is the quiet understanding that not everyone deserves access to your thoughts, your struggles, your dreams, or your next step. Every time you reveal too much to the wrong audience, you leak energy, you invite opinions, doubts, jealousy, and unnecessary interference. But when you choose privacy, you choose peace. You choose clarity. You choose strength. Your inner power grows when your life is no longer a public discussion. When you move quietly, you give yourself space to evolve without pressure. You are no longer performing for validation. You are no longer explaining yourself to people who do not carry your vision. You are no longer influenced by reactions that do not align with your purpose. In privacy, you begin to hear your own voice again, clearly and confidently. Some of the strongest transformations happen in silence. Growth needs room. Healing needs stillness. Reinvention requires protection. When everyone knows your plan, they feel entitled to comment on it. When everyone knows your struggle, they feel entitled to judge it. But when you keep your process private, you protect it from doubt and distraction. You allow yourself to make mistakes without embarrassment and to grow without expectation. Privacy also strengthens emotional discipline. When you stop sharing every feeling, you learn how to process emotions internally. You become more self-aware. You stop seeking comfort externally and start finding it within. This builds emotional maturity. It teaches you how to regulate your reactions, how to sit with discomfort, and how to respond rather than react. These qualities form the foundation of a strong, grounded personality. Another powerful aspect of privacy is that it reveals who truly belongs in your life. When you stop oversharing, you notice who still shows up with genuine care. You recognize who respects your silence and who demands access. Not everyone who asks questions deserves answers. Not everyone who listens has good intentions. Privacy helps you filter your relationships, allowing only those who honor your boundaries to stay close. Privacy also protects your dreams. Not every goal needs to be announced. Not every ambition needs applause. Some dreams grow best when they are nurtured quietly. When you work in silence, your confidence becomes internal rather than dependent on external validation. You stop chasing approval and start chasing alignment. And when success arrives, it speaks louder than any announcement ever could. Choosing privacy does not mean becoming disconnected. It means becoming intentional. It means sharing selectively, speaking consciously, and guarding what matters. It means understanding that your life is sacred and not everyone deserves a front row seat. When you embrace privacy, you stop explaining your path and start owning it. In a world obsessed with exposure, privacy becomes a superpower. It sharpens your focus. It strengthens your confidence. It deepens your peace. It allows you to move with clarity and purpose, without noise or interference. When you make privacy a priority, you reclaim your power. You stop leaking energy. You stop living for reactions. You start building quietly, deeply, and intentionally. And that inner strength, the kind that does not need applause, becomes unshakable. Privacy is not weakness. Privacy is wisdom. Privacy is power. Silence is not emptiness. Silence is not hiding. Silence is protection. In a world that constantly demands explanations, updates, reactions, and access to your life, choosing silence becomes an act of strength. It becomes a way of preserving your energy, guarding your focus, and honoring your inner peace. When you stop explaining yourself to everyone, you stop leaking power. Energy is your most valuable currency. Every conversation, every explanation, every unnecessary disclosure costs you something. When you share too much, especially with people who have not earned your trust, you give them access to your emotional space. You allow them to influence your mood, your confidence, and your decisions. Silence, on the other hand, creates a boundary that protects your mental and emotional reserves. Not everyone deserves to know your plans. Not everyone deserves to hear your struggles. Not everyone deserves access to your healing process. When you talk too much, you invite opinions that confuse you, doubts that weaken you, and judgments that distract you. Silence keeps your vision clean. It allows you to move without interference, without noise, without unnecessary validation. There is power in letting your actions speak. When you stop announcing your goals, you stop inviting doubt. When you stop explaining your choices, you stop seeking approval. When you stop reacting to every provocation, you stop feeding negativity. Silence shifts you from being reactive to being intentional. It places you back in control of your energy. Many people confuse silence with fear, but silence, when chosen consciously, is confidence. It says, I trust myself enough to move quietly. It says, I don't need applause to make progress. It says, my peace matters more than proving a point. Strong personalities are not built on constant noise. They are built on calm certainty. Silence also reveals truth. When you stop filling every gap with words, you begin to see people more clearly. You notice who respects your space and who becomes uncomfortable when they cannot access your thoughts. You notice who listens and who only waits to speak. Silence exposes intentions without confrontation. It allows you to observe without engaging. There is also healing in silence. When you reduce unnecessary conversations, you create space to listen to yourself. You begin to hear your intuition more clearly. You process emotions instead of performing them. You grow inwardly, not publicly, and inner growth is always more powerful than public validation. Silence teaches emotional discipline. It helps you pause instead of reacting. It allows you to choose wisdom over impulse. It gives you the strength to walk away from arguments that do not deserve your energy. When you master silence, you master self-control. And self-control is one of the most respected traits in any strong personality. Privacy and silence work together. Privacy hides your process, while silence protects your progress. You do not need to explain your absence. You do not need to justify your growth. You do not need to announce your transformation. Let people notice the results, not the struggle. In a world addicted to oversharing, silence becomes a superpower. It keeps your mind clear, your emotions stable, and your focus sharp. It allows you to conserve energy for what truly matters: your growth, your goals, and your peace. Silence is not about shutting people out. It is about choosing when and where your energy is invested. When you speak less, you listen more. When you explain less, you move more. When you protect your energy, you become unstoppable. Silence protects your energy, and protected energy builds powerful lives. In truth, silence is one of the most powerful tools a person can possess. When you choose silence intentionally, it becomes strength, it becomes strategy. It becomes self-mastery. In a world where everyone feels pressured to explain, justify, and announce every move, the ability to remain quiet gives you control that few people ever develop. Not every thought needs to be spoken. Not every plan needs an audience. Not every emotion needs to be displayed. When you constantly reveal your inner world, you give others access to influence it. Silence protects your energy. It keeps your intentions pure. It allows you to move without interference, judgment, or distraction. This is where privacy transforms into power. People who speak too much often give away their leverage. They reveal their insecurities, their fears, their next steps, and their emotional triggers. Others may not always misuse this information intentionally, but it still weakens your position. Silence, on the other hand, creates mystery. Mystery creates respect, and respect creates power. When you practice silence, you gain emotional control. You stop reacting to everything. You stop explaining yourself to people who do not deserve access to your truth. You stop defending your choices to those who have no role in your future. Silence gives you the space to observe rather than react, to listen rather than interrupt, and to respond rather than explode. There is a quiet confidence that comes from knowing you do not need to prove yourself. When you stop oversharing, you stop seeking validation. You stop needing approval. You begin trusting your own judgment. This inner trust strengthens your identity and sharpens your focus. Silence becomes the space where your wisdom grows. Silence also teaches you discipline. It forces you to pause before you speak. It helps you recognize which conversations are worth your energy and which ones are not. It prevents you from saying things you might regret later. And it allows your actions to speak louder than your words. Consistent action, not constant explanation, is what builds credibility. There is power in being underestimated. When people do not know your plans, they cannot sabotage them. When they do not know your struggles, they cannot exploit them. When they do not know your next move, they cannot compete with you. Silence keeps your direction protected and your momentum uninterrupted. This does not mean becoming emotionally closed or disconnected. It means becoming selective. It means choosing carefully who earns access to your plans and your vulnerabilities. Privacy is not isolation. It is intention. It is awareness. It is maturity. Silence also strengthens your presence. When you speak less, people listen more. Your words carry weight because they are not wasted. Your voice becomes deliberate, calm, and impactful. You no longer speak to fill space. You speak to add value. This kind of presence commands attention without demanding it. In moments of conflict, silence can be more powerful than argument. It denies negativity the reaction it seeks. It allows emotions to settle. It gives you clarity before response. Often, silence exposes the truth more clearly than words ever could. When you embrace silence, you reclaim control over your inner world. You stop leaking energy. You stop being emotionally available to chaos. You begin living with intention rather than impulse. And slowly, people begin to sense your strength, even if they cannot explain it. Silence builds power because it reflects self-respect. It says, "Who I do not owe everyone access to me." It says, "Who I choose depth over noise." It says, "My life is guided from within." Make silence your ally. Let it sharpen your mind, protect your vision, and strengthen your presence. When used wisely, silence does not hide you. It elevates you. Privacy is not just protection, it is concentration. In a world filled with constant noise, opinions, validation, comparison, and distraction, privacy becomes the space where real growth happens. When everyone knows your plans, your struggles, your next move, your energy becomes divided. But when you move quietly, your focus sharpens, your discipline strengthens, and your progress accelerates. Growth requires silence, not the silence of fear, but the silence of intention. When you stop announcing every goal, every dream, and every step you plan to take, you create a powerful internal environment where your mind can fully commit to execution instead of explanation. Privacy removes the pressure to perform for others and replaces it with the freedom to build for yourself. Many people lose momentum because they talk more than they act. They receive opinions before results. They absorb doubt before confidence has time to grow. When you make your journey public too early, you invite unnecessary interference, advice you didn't ask for, judgment you didn't earn, and expectations that don't belong to you. Privacy protects your focus from this mental clutter. When you work in silence, your mind becomes clearer. You are no longer influenced by applause or discouraged by criticism. You stop measuring progress by reactions and start measuring it by results. Your goals become personal commitments rather than public performances, and that shift changes everything. Privacy also builds emotional discipline. When no one is watching, you learn to show up anyway. When no one is clapping, you learn to continue anyway. This strengthens your inner drive and trains you to rely on purpose rather than praise. That kind of discipline creates consistency, and consistency creates mastery. Focus thrives in privacy because there is less emotional noise. You stop comparing timelines. You stop questioning your pace. Stop second-guessing yourself based on what others are doing. You begin to move at your own rhythm, guided by clarity instead of competition. This allows you to make smarter decisions, deeper plans, and stronger commitments. Privacy also accelerates growth by protecting your failures. Not every setback needs an audience. Not every struggle needs commentary. Some lessons are meant to be learned quietly, processed privately, and integrated deeply. When you fail in silence, you recover faster. When you struggle without explanation, you rebuild stronger. Privacy allows failure to become fuel instead of shame. There is also power in surprise. When people don't know what you're working on, they can't limit you with their expectations. They can't predict you. They can't sabotage your confidence. And when results finally appear, they speak louder than anything you could have announced. Quiet progress creates undeniable impact. Privacy does not mean isolation. It means intention. It means choosing carefully what you share, when you share, and with whom you share. It means understanding that not everyone deserves access to your process. Some people are meant to see the outcome, not the struggle. Some are meant to witness your growth, not participate in it. When you embrace privacy, your focus deepens, your growth speeds up, your identity stabilizes. You become less reactive and more intentional, less distracted and more directed, less dependent on approval and more anchored in purpose. In the end, privacy becomes your competitive advantage. It allows you to build quietly, think fail safely, and grow fully. While others are busy explaining themselves, you are evolving. While others are chasing validation, you are creating results. Privacy sharpens focus. Focus accelerates growth. And growth, when revealed at the right time, changes everything. Privacy is not secrecy born out of fear. It is strength born out of wisdom. When you learn to protect your inner world, your plans, your struggles, and your next moves, you preserve your power. In a world that constantly demands visibility, explanation, and validation, choosing privacy becomes a radical act of self-respect. It allows you to grow quietly, move intentionally, and build a future without unnecessary interference. One of the biggest mistakes people make is sharing their goals too early and their struggles too openly. When you announce your plans before they are fully formed, you expose them to doubt, opinions, jealousy, and discouragement. Not everyone who listens is rooting for you. Some people consciously or unconsciously project their own fears, limitations, or insecurities onto your dreams. Privacy shields your vision from voices that were never meant to shape it. Privacy also protects your emotional energy. Every explanation costs something. Every justification drains something. Every attempt to be understood by the wrong people weakens something inside you. When you stop over-explaining your choices, you reclaim your authority. You stop seeking permission to become who you are meant to be. You realize that not everyone deserves access to your reasoning, your healing process, or your growth journey. A powerful future is built in silence long before it is revealed in success. Strong foundations are never loud. They are patient, focused, and intentional. When you work quietly, you remove pressure. You allow yourself to fail, adjust, learn, and evolve the weight of public expectations. Privacy gives you the freedom to become without performing. Privacy also keeps you disciplined. When fewer people know your plans, fewer people can distract you from them. You stop chasing applause and start chasing progress. You become more committed to your goals because you are doing the work for yourself, not for validation. This internal motivation builds resilience, consistency, and depth, qualities that create long-term success, not temporary attention. There is also emotional safety in privacy. Some chapters of your life require healing, not commentary. Some seasons require solitude, not opinions. When you protect your personal struggles, you give yourselves to process, reflect, and grow at your own pace. You stop reopening wounds just to explain them. You stop reliving pain just to justify your boundaries. Privacy allows healing to be gentle instead of public. Privacy does not isolate you from connection, it refines it. You begin to choose who earns access to your inner world. You stop oversharing with people who cannot hold your truth with care. You surround yourself with fewer voices, but better ones. And those connections become deeper, safer, and more meaningful because they are built on trust, not exposure. When you master privacy, you also master timing. You learn when to speak and when to stay silent. You learn when to share and when to protect. You learn that not every thought needs an audience, and not every achievement needs announcement. You let your results speak for you. You let your consistency speak for you. You let your peace speak for you. A private life is not a hidden life. It is a focused life. It is a life where your energy is invested wisely, your emotions are protected carefully, and your future is built intentionally. People may not always understand your silence, but they will eventually understand your strength. Privacy is not weakness, it is strategy. Privacy is not fear, it is clarity. Privacy is not distance, it is discernment. When you make privacy your superpower, you stop leaking energy and start accumulating power. You stop explaining your path and start walking it. You stop reacting to the world and start creating your future. Protect your inner world, protect your plans, protect your peace. Because the strongest power is the one that does not need to be announced. In a world that demands constant visibility, constant explanation, and constant access to your life, choosing privacy is not weakness. It is wisdom, it is strength, it is self-mastery. When you stop broadcasting every move, every feeling, every plan, you reclaim something priceless. Your power. Privacy protects your energy. It sharpens your focus. It gives your dreams space to grow without interference, judgment, or sabotage. Not everyone deserves access to your thoughts, your struggles, or your next step. Some things thrive best in silence. Some victories are stronger when they arrive unannounced. When you move quietly, you listen more. When you listen more, you learn more. When you learn more, you grow stronger emotionally, mentally, and spiritually. Privacy allows you to act with intention instead of impulse. It helps you respond with wisdom instead of reaction. It keeps your peace intact while the world remains noisy. You do not need to explain your growth. You do not need to justify your boundaries. You do not need applause to validate your progress. Let your results speak. Let your calm speak. Let your consistency speak. Make privacy your refuge. Make your shield. Make it your strategy. Because the most powerful people in the room are often the quietest. The ones who know who they are, where they're going, and don't feel the need to announce it. Protect your life. Protect your plans. Protect your peace. That is not hiding. That is power.